Where's the meat? What does one have to do to learn something around here? Finding your voice? What a cliche. What is it, under my nose? Over my head? About a month ago, I had a common experience. I recorded my voice, listened to my voice, and felt mild disgust. No problem, I thought. I'll just look up how to get good. I said to Google, "Oh, great bearer of knowledge, tell me how to speak good-like." The algorithm then engaged me with expert after expert, pouring cotton candy content into my brain. Relax, they said. Be confident. Just feel it. All you need is a little practice. Nothing but fluff. And it made me sick. If I was going to learn anything, I'd have to teach myself. And for the next 4 weeks, that's exactly what I did. Now, before I could do anything, I had to first learn taste. I found reviews of voice acting from an actual voice actor, and I strapped myself in to learn the nuances only a professional would notice.
What is that? What is this? I don't even know. And yeah, you can tell these people, it wasn't quite there. Trust me, as the guy who voiced the Nigerian, she kind of sounds like Siri. Is that like bad? Oh my god, this is so bad. This is like all round just not good. I've just reaffirmed everything you know.
Wow, I set my expectations way too high. This was gonna be a process. I spent the next several days trying to get as deep into the voice iceberg as possible. I learned anything and everything. Opera categories, regional birdsong, foreign pitch accent, you name it. All the while, I did breathing and voice exercises to become more aware of my own voice. And most importantly, I listened to a bunch of people speak and tried to quantify the differences as concretely as possible. On day 5, I had my first break. I was comparing 2 British presenters, James Burke and Tom Scott, when I realized that James seemed to start his sentences differently than Tom. Each sentence started with lower pitches as opposed to higher ones.
Now, the world which inside...
I started to notice this pattern everywhere, and it seemed to me the more often they started high, the less I liked to listen to them. Now, looking back on this, I was probably also noticing the tendency to exhale faster at the beginning of a sentence. Many people don't take into account the elasticity of their lungs and have mediocre breath control habits as a result. Either way, I had found something. Perhaps I was overconfident in my observation, because I had already started putting together that video when I realized that my starting pitch theory didn't make any sense. By my logic, the best way to speak was monotone. The premature editing actually turned out to be extremely helpful for the next breakthrough. In order to explain my thoughts better, I had downloaded a pitch visualizer. Why didn't I do this earlier? I don't know. Using this tool, patterns became way more evident. I realized what I had been looking at before wasn't the starting pitch, but the beginning of a pitch slope. The effect of this downward pitch slope is twofold. 1, it grabs the attention by increasing the contrast between sentences, and 2, by increasing the contrast between sentences, it highlights the details more than the overall picture. It was most often noticeable in educators, newscasters, and others who sought to inform. On the other hand, an even pitch slope was more noticeable in storytellers, documentary presenters, and those who aimed to be relaxed. The smooth transitions between sentences gave time to ponder over the course of whole paragraphs. The other thing I noticed was the bounciness of the sentences. In some, pitch varied a lot, and in others it stayed close to the same level. Those seemed to be speakers with a more formal tone. Bounciness, or what I came to call pitch acceleration, seemed to be a marker of expressiveness. Finally, things made sense. And this time, I had a chart to prove it. I wrote a script, recorded all the audio, and then realized the chart still had a problem.
The light scatters to the sky above.
What made the chart broke the chart. Tom Scott's speech pattern was classified wrong, or so it seemed. It was the same category as someone like Mr. Beast. But to my ears, he sounded closer to a news anchor, and it was because he was stressing the wrong words.
The world's first elevator shaft was installed 4 years before the elevator was invented. Which sounds ridiculous, but inside this building, the Cooper Union Foundation building in New York City, is the world's first elevator shaft.
He stresses odd words like first, for, which, but, and building, which gives off this weird effect. But what was weirder is that it only applied to Tom. If you listen to a news anchor speak, they stress random words all the time, and it doesn't sound weird. But how does that work? When you speak with muted emotion like a news anchor, you can stress any word and it won't sound out of place. But the more casual tone you take, the more randomly stressed words sound unnatural. We expect emotion and stress to line up with the meaning of a sentence. The appropriate use of stressed sounds was the final piece of the puzzle, I thought. I'll just add that to the video and see how it sounds. It sounded like my voice had barely changed. I understood patterns of speech, but I still knew nothing of tone. After 3 weeks of research and experimentation, I felt as if I had exhausted every option. But what else was left to do? Maybe I should let it go, I thought. I still have something to show for it. But another stubborn part of me came up with a ludicrous idea. Contort your face and scream, choke yourself, look up, shout at the sky. An outside observer might not have recognized these as creative vocal exercises. But I made sure there were none as I performed my final vocal experiment. I didn't expect much when I looked up to shout. Certainly not the pain. I snapped forward before I could vocalize anything. Curious, I tried instead to look up and speak softly, but paused after I felt the same painful tension. Finally, I made an effort to relax the tension, and on the third attempt, I was able to let out a low, huh. This was a new feeling, but was it useful? I lowered my head and sucked in the air. This time, I'd matched that feeling of relaxation. When I spoke, it was the exact tone I was looking for. I'd finally learned how to speak good-like. What is going on? Why did that work? I mean, I got what I wanted, but to leave it here would be hypocritical. I know you're wondering, where's the meat?
Lost in thoughts, all alone.
All I wanted to know was, on an anatomical level, what changed? What exactly did I do differently? Easy, I'll just feel the difference. I think it's something in my throat. Either that or my neck. It took forever to figure this one out, so I'm just gonna explain. The epiglottis controls tone. For some inexplicable reason, this isn't common knowledge. When partially closed, it constricts the airway and adds color to the voice. It turns out that I had been constricting my airway habitually and excessively without a clue for who knows how long. So how did looking up change that? Well, when you look up, you stretch your thyrohyoid muscles, which means you can't use them to bring your larynx up because that would strain them. So to close the epiglottis, your ariepiglottic muscles have to do all the work, but they can't do that because they're also stretched. So you have to learn how to relax them, which might make you realize that you never relax them, which makes you realize that all this time that weird resonance was caused by ariepiglottic tension. If you're like me, you've probably already heard the basic advice. 1 month it took to figure that out. If only I could have learned from a video. Well, someone had to make it.
Destined to seek life beyond the shore, just out of reach.
Over the time it took me to finish this video, I noticed 2 major positive side effects. For a while, I thought my voice had gotten quieter, but in actuality, my voice had stayed the same volume. The resonance caused by my epiglottis was more easily conducted to my ears and gave me a false sense of higher volume. So I started speaking louder, which was easier to do, because with my epiglottis out of the way, I could actually breathe a lot easier. It's crazy to think how close I was to never figuring it out, how easy it would have been to call it early. But this was a question I wanted answers to. And hell if I wasn't going to give it everything I had. And in a way, that's the true meaning of finding your voice. To get what you want, sometimes all you gotta do is look up. Wait, it really was over my head.